order and ask you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I note the presence of all of our board members with the exception of Jennifer Coates, who has been joining us in closed session, but she's unable to join us during this closed session. I ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Our next item is our advisory committee report, but no one is here, so we will move on to the approval of the consent calendar. Do I have a motion? Move approval. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And we have any additional information from staff?
I would share that our CECA team, including our advisory parent, as Mr. Gregory and Mr. Need, have been busy at the school working through getting the things ready to start the new school year. That includes the pieces that they've been doing for their math program, setting up their curriculum, and their teachers being trained, which the board approved at a prior board meeting. So we're excited and we're really happy that everyone's had a little bit of time off and everybody is back just about ready to go as far as our admin team tomorrow. So we will have our first leadership team meeting then and have the opportunity to work with CECA on some of their issues.
Any other comments, questions, board comments? Thank you. We will need to adjourn back into closed session. Thank you. And you can tell Mr. Mead if he shows up. Call the meeting of the Calumet Joint Unified School District to order and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I note the presence of all of our board members with the exception of Member Coate, who is joining us in closed session, but she's unable to join us in open session. And the next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Was there any comments on that before we cover that?
I do want to comment on the consent calendar, the purchase order agreements. I wanted to ask Dr. Freeman and Dr. Anderson to address. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I wanted Dr. Freeman and Dr. Anderson to address an item on page 10 that is on this agenda, and so I wanted to make sure there was an understanding of the board of how this became on the agenda and that it has been taken care of. So if you choose to pull it, you could choose to pull it, or you could listen to Dr. Freeman's explanation and then know that it's been taken care of.
Thank you, Mrs. Binks. President Ingram, I just want to add some clarification to that item listed under brain pot. That was not added into the rec system. It was, there was some confusion, I'll say, due to a retirement of one of the positions to where that piece was let go, but it was not meant to move forward and it wasn't paid for. So that has been rectified with our department, and we've ensured that the proper procedures and processes in place now, and the position's been filled with a new employee.
So just to clarify, you're telling us that you did not buy it. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. So, yeah, I would also verify with our purchasing department as well as educational services, it was not paid for. The rec position was voided, so we will not be using brain potters.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our closed session report out, and we have a long list of very happy selections that we are happy to report out here. And as I will I will ask that each of these selections, if you would like to come on up and give us a little brief statement, that would be nice. And you kind of know who you are in general, but so if you just be prepared to come up, because there is quite a list. I don't want it to take too long. So the Board of Education took action on a motion made by Mike Snellings and a second by Kathy Coate, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Heather Aguilar as the position of principal for Parkview Middle School.
So I just want to thank Board President Ingram, the board, the cabinet here, Superintendent Binks, for the opportunity to serve Parkview. I'm really excited to join the team that they have there at Parkview. I will miss the Mustangs, but I'm ready to make Parkview my new home. So thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you, Heather. The Board of Education took action on a motion made by Sharon Bannister and a second by Debbie Miller, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Garrett Maxwell to the position of Assistant Principal, Ukaiba High School.
Thank you, everyone. Members of the board, Callie and Cabinet. I just want to say I'm very excited to take what I've learned at Parkview this last year and apply it to the high school. And I'm looking forward to a lot of great things that we're going to do up there. You know, as someone who graduated from Ukaiba High School, it really does feel like I'm going home. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Education took action on a motion made by Debbie Miller and a second by Sharon Bannister, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Kevin Lewis to the position of Assistant Principal at Ukaiba High School.
Cabinet and board, thank you very much. After 25 years in education, it's time to take the step and move into my new position at Ukiah High School. Really looking forward to this new opportunity and to provide mentorship, a little continuity, and some leadership at the high school. I want to thank everybody that's helped me along the way, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Board of Education took action on a motion by Sharon Bannister and a second by Mike Snelling, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Chris Rexstad to the position of Dean of Students.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ingram, Board, Cabinet. It's a great opportunity. I've had a great time at Valley, and I'm looking so much forward to taking on a new spot and helping out the community of our school.
Thank you, Chris. Board of Education took action on a motion made by Sharon Bannister and a second by Debbie Miller, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Chris Hunt to the position of Dean of Students, Chapman Heights Elementary School.
Incredible. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I'm really, really excited to start my new position at Chapman Heights and work with such wonderful people. At the same time, I have a very heavy heart leading a team of student services. They've been incredible these last couple of years, and I'm hoping to take everything again from there and apply it to this new spot. And just again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. The Board of Education took action on a motion by Debbie Miller and a second by Kathy Coate, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Megan Hill to the position of Dean of Students of Calamasa Elementary School.
Board, so much opportunity to serve as teacher at elementary school where I was as a kindergartner, and
Thank you. The Board of Education took action on a motion made by Mike Snelling and a second by Debbie Miller, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Amy Lillistrand to the position of Dean of Students at Wildwood Elementary School.
thank you so much. Thank you to the board and to Cabinet. I'm so excited for this opportunity. I just love being here in Ukiah, and my heart is very happy to have done that, but so excited to go to Wildwood and get to know them and have another great year. Thank you.
Education took action on a motion made by Sharon Bannister and a second by Kathy Coate, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Kelsey Bowman to the position of Dean of Students, Dunlap Elementary School.
Thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I'm excited to join Ukiah and be part of something bigger and affect a change here. So thank you.
We're excited to have all of these people moving into administrative positions. This is an opportunity that we've had due to some changes in funding and things like that. So we're able to do this, and all except for Kelsey were Ukiah employees already, and they've been moved around from school to school, some of them, and some of them just moving up from teaching positions into administrative positions. And so we are very excited for all of you, and know that you will all do a wonderful job, and looking forward to this next year with you. All right. Next item on our agenda is our public comment section. We have 15 minutes for items that are not on the agenda, so 3 minutes per person. And it looks like there's 5 people, so we should be able to get everybody in. First person on our agenda is Katrina Lumley.
Good evening, Superintendent Banks, Assistant Superintendent Stoltz, and fellow cabinet members. I just want to give you a report on our back to school drive that we have here in front of the district. We collected 75 to 100 backpacks full of school supplies. And so it was really a success. And we would love to work with you on distributing those supplies. if you could contact me or any one of us. And I'm sure you have a list of students that you know that are in need. And maybe we could work together on distributing those items. But we just wanted, and we had people in the audience here. Two of our members, Jim and Joni, that collected, I think, 20 backpacks and filled them themselves. We just have wonderful people here. So thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. That's a wonderful program. The next person on our agenda is Travis Berkeley.
Good evening. Wanted to say thank you to the community for coming out. Summertime. Appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. I wanted to talk about a school site tour that we conducted on June 22nd. The Civil Review Board conducted a school site tour of the high school. Restrooms accompanied by Mr. Freeman. We toured all the restrooms and the locker rooms. And the condition of said restrooms is horrid. Simply unacceptable. We found damaged lights, fixtures, broken and missing toilet paper dispensers, hand dryers not functioning, broken soap dispensers, and the list goes on and on and on. Granted, the students are responsible for a lot of this damage, but the accountability lies with this district. After this tour was over, the Civil Review Board came to two main reasons why these restrooms are in shambles. Number one is lack of security. There is not enough security on this campus to monitor these restrooms and keep them in functioning order. And number two was understaffed janitorial services. We walked with the janitor. He opened up every room of us. We talked to him. We said, hey, how can you make this better? I need more people. He's understaffed. These restrooms need to be monitored continuously. Continuously. The students who are causing this damage, well, their parents need to pay the bill. You need to make an example out of some of these students. And once that goes around and they understand that the parents are paying $300 to $500 for damages, it's going to stop. It's going to absolutely stop. The restroom services is a large job, and it's only monitored by 6 janitors for the entire high school. They don't have enough time to make repairs. They barely have enough time to clean up the mess. The recommendations are hire more security. Use that ADA money that Newsom just gave you on top of your budget to pay for it. Right? Just got a little bump in the ADA. Right? So let's use that. Let's put that towards it. Hire more janitors to properly deal with the scope of work. We understand that there were other people who were complaining about us touring the high school. We got the call a couple hours before we were supposed to be there. This was supposed to be a 3-day tour. It turned into a 1-day tour.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
I'm not done yet.
I'm sorry.
The districts.
Lauren Hernandez, you're up next. Thank you. If you'd like to pass your position, we can go to the next one. Lauren, are you up? Are you coming up? Thank you.
Hi. Good evening, Superintendent Benjamin. I'm actually piggybacking on what Travis was going to say anyway, so I'll kind of finish. So we had been told that there would be 3 days of touring. It got cut down to 1. We had about 15 to 20 different people that were willing to go and walk the campus, so we could cover the whole entire campus, and we were told 2 to 3 people. So it was very disconcerting that it being a public school on property that we can't even have families and concerned people that are here for the students to find out And there's coaches who care and they hold those children accountable. But I also know that there's no toilet paper, there's no soap, kids are vaping, doing drugs, having sex in the bathroom. I know for a fact that some administrators have been told about that. They go, oh, it's okay, they'll be done in a few minutes. No, absolutely no. It bothers me that our campus cannot be clean because that's unhealthy for our children. It's unhealthy for a child to go all day long without being able to go to the bathroom. You know, darn well they're not going to eat or drink correctly either. So that's unhealthy. Like I said, one of my kids is an athlete, so he's lucky. But the regular kids on campus that have to walk all the way from one side to another because some bathrooms aren't even open because they're so broken, no doors. It's disgusting. As a parent, I would just be, and I am horrified that my kids would be subject to how to try and be in a restroom under those circumstances. Because they certainly don't do it in my house. Make sure they clean us. One of my children, back in the day when my kids were in school, they would have done something, they would have been held accountable, they would have been suspended, fined, and the parent would have been called too. Because trust me, if my kid got in trouble on campus, they got in trouble at home. We're allowing these kids to not have consequences for their actions. We're doing a disservice as they go out to the real world because you have consequences. You get a speeding ticket, you get arrested. I know kids are not to be afraid of cops, but doggone it, stand straight. We need those kids held accountable so our children can have a safer, cleaner environment in school. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Transparency has become a very popular word in recent years. Government agencies are constantly telling us how important it is to be transparent. However, I feel that our district has not been as transparent as it should be. It has come to my attention that the district, if requested, does not permit books and/or materials being considered for classroom instruction to be checked out by parents or interested groups or citizens for the purpose of reviewing these materials before being introduced to the schools. Another interesting item is that the district does not permit parents, groups, or interested citizens to sit in on classes for the purpose of seeing how classes are run, what materials are being used, and how they are being used. This used to be common practice when I went to YCJUSD schools and also when I taught the Fontana School District. Now, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on any of these things I've mentioned. And if I'm not, why are these things not happening today? In the last 3 years or so, a popular phrase is being bannered about from our leaders, media, and others. Trust the science. Sounds good, but as we've seen, it only seems to apply when it is used to enforce the narrative of those in charge. Recently, the San Diego schools reinstituted their mask mandates for all students. In the last 2 days, Culver City schools did the same thing. Los Angeles Unified is expected to join in, and I would imagine that other schools in the state will also jump on board. If this becomes an agenda item for YCJUSD schools, I would hope that the district thinks long and hard before implementing it. I would suggest that you read Dr. Burks' new book, Silent Invasion, before trusting the science. Dr. Burks and Dr. Fauci were in charge of the program to oversee the COVID response in our country. In this book, she makes some interesting admissions to all of us. She states that they knew masks were useless in preventing the spread of the virus. She also mentioned that her 6-foot social distancing metric was the arbitrary and had no scientific backing. The limit of no more than 10 people at a gathering was again an arbitrary number, used only to make it easier to swallow to the public. She stated that they had to change numbers to fit their story. The list goes on. I would strongly encourage that before the board ever considers going back to masking, which could be an issue, that you should think long and hard about who you are responsible to. If you are truly interested in what science says, then follow it. If your responsibility is to the kids, then follow it. This community of parents and citizens is awake. We will closely be watching the actions that the board and the district takes. Thank you.
Jim. Okay. Terry, Okay, no problem.
So I wasn't finished. I'm gonna pick up where I left off on the site tour, guys. So we received a phone call hours before the tour was supposed to happen. And we were told that there were other people complaining that we got to go do this tour. So myself and one other person offered up our spot for the 3 spots that were available. And lo and behold, no one was there to fill it. As far as the liability goes, the reason that we were told that this is a one-day shop, the district did not want to open this up for other groups and different things. The district needs to set ground rules for these type of things. Vet these people. You have vetted us. You know us. Vet them. Do their kids go to this school? Do they live in town? What are they about? It's just, you don't shut it down. We are the taxpayers of this community. We should never be turned down for such a request to visit the schools that our children go to at any given time. I look forward to meeting with you, Mrs. Binks and Mr. Freeman, on this subject. And I also look forward to more school site tours. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. On our agenda is our crime report. Is that you, the best?
Actually, we're gonna reserve comments for our next meeting.
Okay.
We did have a meeting with this board meeting.
Okay.
Prep, so.
All right, no problem. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 7.01. It's the contract regarding the pneumatics service for COVID testing review, not testing, it's the tracing. Any comments, questions? If not, I'll take a motion. All in favor? Oh, sorry, seconded by Bannister. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All in favor? I did that already, huh?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. 7.02, second review of the charter school renewal changes. Any comments or questions on that? Do I have a motion from anybody?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next one is the West Ed agreement for professional learning for the science instructional materials. Have any comments, questions, or a motion? Move approval. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The final one for this part is the memorandum of understanding regarding Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. Any comments, questions on that?
Move approval.
Seconded by Member Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We're on to the consent calendar action. And any comments, questions? The one item has already been discussed and it's still okay to leave it on here because it's getting voided by staff differently.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're down into our information section. First item is 9.02, which is to receive the administrative regulation regarding evaluation of instructional materials. Any comments, questions? I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Did I miss? Sorry. I was just gonna move right on by. I was at the bottom of my page and I didn't see it. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram, members of the board, Ms. Binks. Mr. Burton stole my thunder a little bit about some increased funding. So that's actually what this is about. So back in June, I came to the board and we had a deadline to approve our budget. And that budget was based on the information we had from the state at the time. And so every year, if when we approve our budget, so when the state approves their budget, if there's a significant difference, an increase in funding, decrease of funding, and within 45 days, there's public information about the new revenue sources for our district. And so that's where we're at. So we took a detour this year. 2 years ago, we did the same thing. But California adopted their budget, and then we are here for a revised budget for information. It's not an approval item, it's an information item this evening, just to share a little bit about the revenues that are coming our way. So there were two big changes in our funding levels based on two things. One was a recalculation of our average daily attendance. And so as the board knows, we are funded based on the number of students who are at school every day. And so that was a big piece. So before COVID, before any sort of changes, we were funded on the prior year's ADA. So we're in declining enrollment. So if we were in a normal year, this year's funding would be based on our ADA from last year. And so that was the traditional model. What they've done now is, because so many districts in California are declining enrollment, that they actually are, the idea was to have a 3-year average. So we don't just take last year's ADA, we take the last 3 years of ADA, and that's what we're funded on moving forward into this year. And so by doing that, that increased our ADA if you do the average. What's different in the actual finalized budget from the state is they did something called the attendance yields. And I have a slide on that later, but just I'll briefly discuss it here. If we remember, pre-pandemic, our ADA, on average, we had 95% of our students attend school. And so during the pandemic, that number was held harmless. And so we were able to use that 95%. Well, coming into last year with the pandemic, students being off, quarantine, those things, across the state, the average daily attendance declined. So statewide average, about 89% of students showed up to school every day. In Ukiah, we were at 90%. So if you think about, traditionally, 95% of our students came to school. Last year, only 90% of our students came to school. Our funding moving into next year would be based on that 90%. And what the state did was say, let's use your pre-pandemic percentage. So instead of 90%, we get to use 95% in our 3-year average. And I have a slide that kind of dictates that. So that was the big thing, is that we can use our pre-pandemic percent of students that come to school every day. And that did increase our ADA moving forward. So this is my only long chart, but as you know, we do receive from the local control funding formula a base grant per ADA. So remember, this isn't per student. This is 95% of our students generated this ADA. So in 2021-22, let's use kindergarten for example. In 2021-22, last year we received $8,093 per student in kindergarten per ADA. We knew about the 6.56 cost of living adjustment. So for kindergarten student, that was $531 per ADA increase. What's new and actually increased, not only did they do a cost of living adjustment, but they did addition to the base grant. And what that really is to combat inflation. So they added not only COLA, but they added a significant amount to the actual base grant. And so when I came to you in June and talked about this, it was about, it was half. So it was around $250 per ADA for kindergarten students. They actually upped the addition to the base grant in the final budget. So then you have the next line, the 2022-23 base grant per ADA. So just the base grant, we went from $8,093 per ADA in K3 to $9,132. So a significant increase in the amount of money we're receiving per ADA. On top of that, grades K3 do receive every year a grade span adjustment. The theory is that it's cost more to educate K3 students and also 9-12 students. So you can see that the adjusted base grant per ADA going into next year is $10,082 per K3 student. And you can see those grade spans across that we do receive different funding. So when I came to you in June, that number was $9,850. And so now with the final budget from the state, it went to $10,082. So the difference per ADA in those grade spans, you can see at the bottom. Grades K3 is $267 more than I reported to you in June. So if you take all that together, the June LCFF, I came to you and I talked about revenue, we were set to receive $89 million. With the July budget passing and us relooking at our numbers with the new state budget, we are set to receive $92 million for our LCFF base, and that's an increase of $3.4 million. So we're going to receive $3.4 million more than I reported to you in June, based on the state budget. So in addition, I'm sorry, Ms. Asher.
Well, I just, real quick, the ADA and the 3-year average and all this stuff, is that ongoing, or is that just, we're doing that for now? And I know everything changes all the time, but how long do you expect that to last?
So I believe they're going to stick with a 3-year average. Our LCAP supplemental concentration grant money has always been based on a 3-year average. So I believe they'll stick with a 3-year average.
Okay.
What I don't believe they'll stick with, we'll see, is that adjustment from 90 to 95%. I believe that was a 1-year adjustment. We'll see how this year goes. And also, if you remember, the state budget, around 40% of the state budget has to go towards actually K-14 education, community colleges, and K-12 districts. So the state had extra money. And so they decided through different political perspectives where to put that money. So as of now, the free average is staying, and this was a one-time for that 90 versus 95%.
Thank you.
No?
Yeah, because it's about the same thing. So.
We go back.
Sorry. Okay, so I was wondering that too. The 3-year ADA is how they determine this. The 95%. I'm not understanding.
So let's go to the final slide of the presentation. Let's skip the ADA and we'll come back. But you can see that in 2019-20, you can see what our ADA was as pre-pandemic. So our ADA, 95% of our students came to school every day, and our ADA was 77.22. That was down 131 from the year before. In 2021, it was held harmless. So they didn't fund us on anything different other than the pandemic. Last year, we had 90% attendance. So our ADA in actuality was 7210. We were down 512 ADA. So that means on average, we had 512 students less in school every day than we did in the pre-pandemic time. So if you look at my formula on the bottom, you take the 2019-20 year, which is 77.22, the 2020-21 year, which is 77.22, and before this budget would have been enacted, we would have had to take the 72.10 as our 3rd year. But because they went from 90 to 95, we're able to take 75.69 as our 3rd year. And so you divide that by 3, and that's what we're actually funded on next year. So the 3-year average was pre-July budget. That adjustment from 72.10 to 75.69, that was in the July budget and helped increase our ADA.
Oh, so that changed from the 3 years to this.
Yeah, 3 years, and then we added the 90 to 95.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
now I understand.
So if there would have been no changes, if the average or the 90 to 95 percentage would not have been in play, we would have been funded next year on 7210. We would have been funded on 500 plus students. And so because of the pandemic and those things, we actually are funded at the bottom 51 students plus than we were this year. So that's the relief we received in ADA.
So that's about was that $5 million?
Yeah, yeah. Depending on grade level.
Yeah, I mean, just
yeah. So significant, and that's the ADA relief we received. So that ADA relief, as well as the increase, the additional money for the base grant, is how we ended up with the $3.5 million more going in next year. 3.4, 3.5. Okay, we go back to that chart.
Yeah.
No, 3.46. Yeah, 3.4 million. If you take ADA, the additional base, that's our new money for this. Okay. Sure. Next slide. So in June, we had a budget, and the state realized that they severely underfunded public education because of the surplus that they had. So not only did we get ADA relief, we got addition to the base grant, we also got new programs. So, so the first one, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, Dr. Anderson brought a plan to you in June. We knew we were going to have that money, but in June, that was only 2.1 million. So now that's 3.8 million. And that, as you can see, is ongoing. So that's the program for grades TK through 6 for low-income students, foster youth, and English learners, where we have to offer a 9-hour day for those students. We get to not out and do a 9-hour day. We're partnering with the city of Pipe and the STARS program to fund that. So they almost doubled the funding for the ELOP program with the surplus. And then we received 2 major block grants, and these are one-time monies. So we do have 5 years to spend them. The first one is a learning recovery emergency block grant. And if you think about ESSER, when we approved that, and it's learning recovery, extended day, extended time for students, there is some things that I'm sure Dr. Anderson will have to develop a plan, it's not out yet, but $10.1 million we have to allocate in learning recovery money. It's one time, we get it once, a plan from the Board of Education, we have 5 years to spend that money. In addition, we received $4.8 million in an arts, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant. And as you see the name of the title there, that's what that money is available for. And so that's also 5 years to spend that, and a plan will come before the Board of Education in those 2 major funding sources.
Dr. Freeman, that's almost $20 million, 18 something million. Is that part of the 92 million, or is that on top of the 92 million?
That's on top of. The first slide I showed you was unrestricted general fund money. This is program.
Okay, but this is restricted for use.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, these all have restrictions on what we can use the funding for, whereas the 3.4 additional is to
Yeah,
I was just wondering, Eric or Dr. Breeden, I don't know if you know this or not, or Dr. Anderson, but how prescriptive are those requirements for the emergency block grant and the art, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant?
So the learning recovery emergency block grant is very restrictive. There's 6 categories. Things like extended time for students, and staff, intervention, social emotional development, so very restrictive. The arts, music, instructional materials, and that last word, discretionary. So it can be those arts, music, instructional materials, and then discretionary means operational costs. So that's not as restrictive, but definitely expanded learning opportunities program, learning recovery, emergency block grant are very restrictive. And more information, we have a general outline in the budget. More information will come from CDE on those things. California Department of Education.
Okay.
So, yeah, good news.
Yeah,
So
I just wanted to make a comment that the year before the pandemic, before all of our attention went to the pandemic, we were all about cutting costs and we were in financial trouble. And so this is kind of it's mini.
Yeah, and as I've shared before, the California budget for schools is based on taxes. So property tax, personal income tax, corporate tax, and sales tax. And as those go up and down with something I'm going to share in a minute, it can be very volatile. So there have been times when I've come to the board and say we'll have surplus, and 6 months later the economy has changed. So
I'm glad it went the right way.
yeah. So I wouldn't be a proper business official if I didn't talk a little bit about risk factors. So we did see increases in funding. And remember, the California budget is a budget just like ours. So in June, the revenue was down $2 billion for the state. So they did their budget, and so it's the best plan they had at the time. Doesn't guarantee funding. It's the best plan they had at the time. So we've all seen rising costs. If you're in the construction industry, or you even go to the gas station. So this was a slide that I wanted to just talk a second about. And the economists are looking at recession. So recession can mean lots of things. So recession means 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP growth. It doesn't mean a great recession where we saw a 28% decline in GDP. It doesn't mean, so we've had recessions and they've been mild for the most part in my educational career. The big one, obviously, the Great Recession. So at minimum, economists see it flattening out. So we've increased and we see it flattening out in the out years. So the stock market, anywhere from 8 to 20% down. And the personal income tax was high last year. The stock market was up, and the taxes came in off capital gains. So we are seeing at minimum a flat. And then, as you can see on the slide, many economists believe we'll see a recession. To the point of what that recession is, we'll have to wait and see. We'll keep our eye on it. But on the right are the recession signals that are all in play. When they look at, predicting recessions, the only one not there is high unemployment. But a caution. So I truly believe we've gone up and will at least level out and possibly decline a little bit, which would affect our LCFF money per student. Next slide, please. And then I always caution, one of the big things that we have to worry about is ADA. And so we have projected enrollment for next year. So we're watching every day, even now. School offices, elementary school offices open on Monday. And so as we look to the future, watch the ADA and see if we're going to be at 90% of ADA this year, 95, 93, to see what it looks like this year. So we'll keep an eye on that. And even, I just want to point out, we've gone over the slide, but even with this adjustment, we're still down 51 ADA. So even with this, obviously the low is not 512. So, not 90% better, but we're still 10% down. So, that's where we're at with revenue at this time.
Thank you. Go ahead. You want me to go ahead? So I don't want to say the R word, but with that possibly happening, I know we have a certain amount in reserve. And is that, I can't remember, is that capped? At a certain amount, we can only do a certain percentage? Or is that something that we could possibly add to?
Sure.
In case the R word happens?
That's a great question. So we have a minimum reserve of 3%. We have a maximum reserve of 10%. But the board can't commit funds to economic uncertainty. So the Board of Education did in September of last year commit $1 million for future economic uncertainty. So we actually do have around a 4 or 5% reserve. But as we go through the year, we are capped at 10%. And the board would be, if we had funding and the board wanted more reserves, we can commit funds to that. And that takes away from the 10% cap. So.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? Great. Thank you very much. Okay, now I get to go to 9.02. That was administrative regulation regarding selection and evaluation of instructional materials. Any comments or questions on that? All right, the next item is our Williams Monitored Schools report for the fourth quarter, which had that was the letter from them for 0 findings. Any comments, questions? Our next one is our Williams report, the chart regarding the complaint items, and there was just some teacher vacancies in there. Any other comments?
It says it was resolved, so.
Yeah, I think everything else was resolved that was on that Williams report. Facility issues, right? Okay, thank you. We are down to additional administrative.
Thank you, President Ingram. It's an honor this evening to recognize our own Lance Bradley. The California School Public Relations, known as CalSPRA, has some events that they hold where they look for things to recognize in our school districts across the state of California. There's also a national organization, and I wanted to share with the Board of Education that our Lance Bradley has won an award, an award of merit for the weekly Peak newsletter. And so this was something that Lance designed himself, and it goes out to our all of our employees, including our substitutes, to make sure that people stay connected, understand what goes on at board meetings, as well as some of the great awards that our teachers and our employees have received, classified employees of the year and so on. And it keeps them abreast of what's going on. Lance has also worked on looking to have a retiree newsletter to keep our retirees connected. We're just continuing to gather emails And then as we have returned back to a normal school year and a great start, we're excited to go back to community cabinet, which would then include the opportunity to work with our community and have that communication with them. So I wanted to take a moment and ask the board to help me recognize Lance Brown. Oh. You want to take it? You can't take your own picture. So you will have to take a picture. Congratulations. I'm really proud of you.
I don't want to use Lance's camera. That's more.
Yeah.
I love.
Also, President Ingram, I wanted to share that tomorrow will be our first day with our leadership team back, and then we have our kickoff coming up that we're going to call a Kickstart this time, and we will have our featured speakers be our students. So we have our ASB president, we have high school who will be speaking, we have a student who's a Valley Viking who will be speaking, and then a student from CECA. And they're going to talk to us about building our schools together.
Thank you, President Ingram. I just wanted to provide a little bit more information first. Mrs. Lovely, our department will reach out to you just to work with you. Thank you. And then also just to provide more information on instructional materials. Anybody can contact us anytime if they have questions, they want to see things. I will help navigate that because we're open to that and we want to make sure that we support everyone's needs. So anytime Ed Services, I will come and get your name and contact information too. Thank you.
Just if they're watching, maybe just a thank you to our fiscal services staff. Budget's been very fluid this year, and so they put in a lot of hard work and to get our numbers accurate the best we can. So thank you to our fiscal services department.
Great, thank you. Member Miller, any comments?
Thank you to all the speakers. I always love having
Use your microphone.
Oh, yep. I always love having you guys here. Anybody that wants to come speak, it's wonderful to have people in the audience. Dr. Riemann, thank you for always making it easy to understand and all the information that you brought to us tonight. Thank you. And I can't wait for Kickstart. I missed it last year. I think it was kind of different last year. And I'm asking for a few hours off because I'm counting. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
Lance, you don't look like a guy to have a publication called The Pete, but congratulations. Nevertheless. And to let you know, I do enjoy reading it too, because the board gets copies of that too. So thank you for sending that to us and congratulations on your own work.
Thank you.
So I'd also like to share the excitement that I think all the board had with all the new employees tonight. They're sharing these. I'm gonna take your turn.
Oh, wait, you're gonna steal.
No, I'm not going to. No, but there's just a really good vibe, for lack of a better description, with the new people that we met with today. A lot of excitement, and it's good to have principals in place at all the schools, particularly in Kaipa High School, which is so important to have some solid administrators there. I'm really excited about that. And then our new principal at Parkview, I just think that we've got some really good matches with folks, and the elementary deans coming to be will be really helpful for our principals and take some things off of their plates and allow them to do a lot of great things for kids. I'm just really excited about a school year that is normal.
Yeah, I have a couple of things too. So Lance, I suspect that sometime in your childhood, somebody says, I don't want to hear it, to peep out of you. There you go, you're peeping away, so congratulations. And I also want to thank Dr. Freeman and your staff. You know, navigate all this budget stuff. It's mind-boggling, and it changes every 15 minutes, and you've done a wonderful job of keeping us informed about all the changes. I really, really appreciate the work that you've done and the clarity with which you present all of this. And then the word that I used when we were in closed session was synergy. I want to thank all of the staff, because I know it was a bunch of people who went through all the interviews. This is a lot. All of the interviews, finding the right people, and then trying to put them in the right spot. And it just seems, just feels really good that we're going to have a great kickstart and get back to normal, and not just back to normal, but take all that we've learned and be better. And I'm very, very encouraged and very proud of all the work that you guys have done.
I also want to thank the staff for all their work, not only on the budget, but also even on just our facilities. I know that it's a constant repair issue, and we work on it constantly, and that's why our loans report came back so well, because you do work on them efficiently, and I appreciate that. And congratulations to all of our new staff that was hired, and to all the other staff at the schools who I'm sure are grateful to have extra help there at those schools. And I think Mr. Holden mentioned about books, and Dr. Anderson addressed it a little bit, but I think, and I know a lot of the people who are in the audience have come and checked out our books who've had adoptions. I appreciate that, because every time we have a new set of books that need adopting, they are out here in the lobby for like a month or two, as I recall. It's a long time to sit out here. And you're always welcome to come and see them, but obviously we can have a book that's adopted before your child gets to that grade, and so you can call the staff and always see any materials. And I know that some of our people have come to some of our other parent meetings, and we appreciate everything you stayed involved with that and giving your feedback to us on it. So I do have a memorial adjournment tonight in memory of Evelyn Haynes, who served as a child nutrition worker at Yucaipa High School and Mesa View Middle School from 2008 to present, and Brett Smith, who served as an elementary teacher, counselor, and psychologist at Calamasa Elementary School and Yucaipa High School from 1976 to 2020. And we need to go back into closed session. And so we will adjourn this meeting back into closed session. Thank you.